I said going into the fight, it's probably going to take AJ a few rounds to get hold of him. And I also said, as soon as he lands clean, the fight's over, right? He landed a few before, but the first that he landed really clean was the final shot. But, you know, he never flatlined Jake. I mean, he did break his jaw in 2 places, which is a disaster. But there are a lot of heavyweights that would have been out cold from that right hand. I mean, one of them was Francis Ngannou in a pretty similar shot, really. Do you know what I mean? So I actually give Jake unbelievable credit for doing it in the first place, but his performance as well. I mean, I stand by the fact that I think he's just a decent cruiserweight, but like he did go in with Anthony Joshua, and look, the world is full of criticism and opinions and negativity. Who else is doing what he's doing at what is he, late 20s? I mean, quite phenomenal. I mean, the guy's a complete madman. I'm watching him come out to that ring walk, and he's just an incredible entertainer.
Nobody expected the story to keep going after the knockout. The fight was over, the decision was clear, and the outcome looked exactly like what most people predicted. Yet, instead of fading away, the conversation exploded. Rumors began circulating almost immediately, and they weren't small ones. They were the kind of rumors that make people stop scrolling. Claims suggesting that Jake Paul was considering legal action connected to his loss against Anthony Joshua. For many fans, that idea sounded so unbelievable, it almost felt surreal. A lawsuit? After a knockout? In a boxing match? That single thought alone was enough to pull the entire internet back into the chaos. What made it even more shocking was the reaction from people who actually understand the sport. Fighters, analysts, and longtime insiders didn't just disagree with the rumors, they looked genuinely stunned by them. Because from their perspective, nothing about that night felt unusual. Nothing looked staged. Nothing looked protected. It looked like a massive mismatch playing out exactly the way mismatches usually do. So the real question became obvious very quickly. If the fight itself wasn't controversial, why did the aftermath suddenly feel so explosive? The night carried enormous pressure before a single punch was thrown. This wasn't just another influencer boxing event. This was a global broadcast on one of the biggest platforms in the world, Netflix, millions of eyes. A mainstream audience watching boxing, many of them for the first time. For Anthony Joshua, that meant expectations were brutal. He wasn't just representing himself, he was representing the sport, his legacy, and the idea that elite boxing still means something. One mistake on that stage wouldn't just be embarrassing. It would be catastrophic. That context explains why the fight didn't begin with reckless violence. Joshua didn't rush. He didn't swing wildly. He didn't try to end the night in 30 seconds just to satisfy highlight-hungry fans. Instead, he stayed disciplined, calm, patient. And ironically, that patience is exactly what triggered criticism. Viewers online immediately started questioning why it was taking so long. Why Jake was still standing. Why the knockout hadn't come sooner. But those reactions ignored the reality of risk. One careless moment against an unpredictable opponent can erase years of dominance in seconds. Joshua knew that better than anyone. Jake Paul's approach was equally calculated, just in a completely different way. He wasn't there to win rounds. He wasn't there to dominate exchanges. His goal was survival. From the opening moments, it was clear he planned to move constantly, clinch often, and avoid clean engagements at all costs. Some people mocked it. Others called it smart. But regardless of opinion, it worked longer than expected. And the longer it worked, the more uncomfortable the conversation became. Because once Jake exceeded expectations, by simply staying upright, the narrative shifted. Suddenly, the focus wasn't just on Joshua's eventual victory, but on how the fight unfolded. That shift created space for speculation. And speculation, especially online, doesn't need facts to grow. It just needs curiosity. Soon after the fight, whispers started spreading that something didn't go according to plan. Claims suggesting there was some kind of understanding behind the scenes. Some expectation that the bout would be handled differently. These claims remain unverified, and it's important to say that clearly. There is no confirmed evidence of any agreement, no official statements supporting it. But once those ideas entered the conversation, they took on a life of their own. The most bizarre part was the implication itself. That Anthony Joshua, a two-time heavyweight world champion with everything to lose, would deliberately hold back or follow instructions inside the ring. For most boxing insiders, that idea was laughable. This is a fighter whose reputation is built on professionalism and discipline. He doesn't play games in the ring. He doesn't protect opponents. He protects his legacy. And when the opening finally appeared, he did exactly what elite fighters are trained to do. He ended the fight. The final moments didn't look hesitant. They didn't look theatrical. They looked decisive. Clean punches. Controlled aggression. And then it was over. That sequence alone caused many experts to immediately shut down the idea that anything was scripted. Real damage doesn't happen on cue. Broken bones don't follow narratives. And that damage became part of the story very quickly. Reports emerged about Jake's injuries. A broken jaw, surgery, titanium plates, screws. Those details changed the tone of the conversation almost overnight. Suddenly, the loss wasn't just a loss, it was a physical reminder of what happens when skill gaps collide with power. Sympathy grew. Debate intensified. And once again, the internet split into sides. Jake himself didn't publicly accuse Joshua of wrongdoing. Instead, attention turned toward his team. According to people close to the situation, the legal frustration wasn't aimed at Joshua at all. It was aimed at the constant claims that Jake's fights are fake, scripted, or rigged. Claims that follow him no matter what happens in the ring. Win or lose, the narrative never seems to stop. From that angle, the lawsuit rumors make more sense. Not as an attack on an opponent, but as an attempt to defend credibility. To push back against accusations that refuse to disappear. And that distinction matters. Because despite all the noise, no confirmed lawsuit has been filed against Anthony Joshua. The legal talk appears focused on defamation, not the fight itself. Meanwhile, calmer voices stepped in to ground the discussion. Analysts pointed out that the bout unfolded almost exactly as experts predicted. A massive size difference. A massive experience gap. A survival-based approach from Jake, controlled pressure from Joshua. No chaos, no scandal. Just reality. Some even argued the fight was handled responsibly. No unnecessary risks. No reckless exchanges. Both fighters walked out of the ring alive, which in boxing is never guaranteed. Then the financial side surfaced, and that surprised almost everyone. Reports suggested that despite the enormous purse numbers being thrown around publicly, Joshua's actual earnings were dramatically reduced by taxes and deductions. Tens of millions gone before the money ever reached his account. It became a stark reminder that even at the highest level, winning doesn't always mean walking away rich. And for fans, that revelation reframed the entire event. This wasn't just sport. It was global business. Promoters added more context, explaining that Jake understood his limitations going in. That winning wasn't realistic. That survival was the real objective. From that perspective, lasting several rounds wasn't failure, it was execution. And while critics dismissed the performance, others quietly acknowledged something uncomfortable. Many fighters in that weight range wouldn't have lasted that long under the same pressure. The injury alone proved the danger was real. Of course, criticism didn't disappear. Some argued Joshua should have ended it earlier. That champions are judged by dominance. That 6 rounds was too generous. And Joshua didn't run from that critique. He owned it. Admitted expectations were higher. Acknowledged the standard he's held to. That honesty added another layer to the story, one rarely seen in the middle of controversy. As the dust settled, a rare agreement formed among experts. Whatever people think about Jake Paul, this fight wasn't rigged. Joshua had far too much to lose. One mistake would have rewritten his career in the worst possible way. The early caution wasn't weakness, it was calculation. Adjusting to an opponent who didn't fight like a traditional boxer. Someone unpredictable. Someone willing to bend the rhythm just to survive. That unpredictability confused casual viewers, because it didn't look like boxing as they imagined it. It looked awkward, frustrating, slow at times. But to those who understand the sport, it made sense. Once movement slowed, once fatigue crept in, the outcome became inevitable. And when Joshua finally landed clean, the night ended exactly how experience and power usually decide these matchups. So where do the rumors stand now? Exactly where they started. Online, unproven, loud, constantly evolving. There's no confirmed lawsuit against Anthony Joshua. No verified claim of broken agreements. Just speculation feeding curiosity. And in today's media landscape, that's often enough to keep a story alive long after the truth becomes clear. What can't be denied is this: the fight exposed real limits, real risks, and real consequences. It blurred the line between spectacle and sport once again. And whether people loved it, hated it, or argued about it for hours afterward, one thing is certain. Long after the punches stopped, the narrative kept swinging.